Hey good people, this is your Anti-Dom back with another YouTube reflection, and this is a personal journal for contemplative people looking to think, grow, and have impact in the world. So hey, I'm here to do a part two. I don't do part two often just because they don't usually get played because I guess like people get the sense of what you said in part one, and they don't have an interest in part two, but I literally ran out of time, and so because of these YouTube reflections for me are limited to 15 minutes, I just needed more than 15 minutes. So I took in some content about black conservatism versus black liberalism. It was a debate or discussion that I saw on YouTube, and it was 5 years old. When I listened to it, it had been recorded 5 years ago. And in part one, I really talked about the style of the discussion. I talked a lot about stylistically in terms of presentation and who had a chance to speak, who didn't speak, why they maybe spoke the way they spoke stylistically, why they were silent. So I spent a good portion of that time talking in that regard. And then in the second half, which is where I ran out of time, I wanted to talk about belonging, and I want to talk about individualism. So I said a lot of what, in terms of belonging, I started it in part one. In this discussion, the black conservatives were really making, to me, a valid point about, hey, I get hit and criticized a lot by progressives for being a black conservative. And so for progressives to be on the political side of tolerance and inclusion, it doesn't feel like tolerance and inclusion when they start attacking me. And yes, I can totally relate to that. And I talked about how I had my experience being dragged by a young woman 20 years my junior, and well, not 20 years, but let's say about 17 years my junior. She dragged me. And it was so painful. It was just so painful. But I'm so glad I had that experience, because it forced me to really think about what was painful. And if you guys go back to my podcast, the long form reflections, I did 2 episodes where I was processing that experience with this young woman in real time. Right? So she maybe took up about a few episodes where I'm really grappling with, man, I have this young woman who is not seeing me in a favorable way, yet everything about me is about protecting her. Everything about me is about affirming her. So it was really hard for me to be in this place where I wanted to protect her, yet she was coming at me. And I had to really deal with a lot of dynamic tensions of like, well, I want to protect myself, but I was having conflict because of values that I have for the community. My values really made it difficult for me to come at her the way she was coming at me, and the way she accused me of coming at her, which in how I've brought conclusion to that, I think that there was some bias that she had about me as a woman, as a black woman, because she's used to black women showing up in a certain way, and as an INTJ, talking about personality theory, I don't show up that way. You have to know about the theory, Myers-Briggs theory, to understand how female INTJs show up in the world, black or white. And most women, so INTJs have a cognitive function. We lead with TE is at the top of that's our dominant judging function, TE, which stands for extroverted thinking. But most women, they have a dominant function. Their dominant judging function is called extroverted feeling. And so when women who are primarily extroverted feelers meet other women who are extroverted thinkers, there's all kinds of conflict that exists. That's just in general. I've heard black and white and all other groups talking about this. So this young woman had never interacted with an INTJ black woman. So the fact that I wasn't showing up with that FE judgment judging function. I was showing up with the TE judging function. And without her understanding that theory, that diversity, she made an assumption that I'm not giving her the feeling. I'm not coming with her the feelings that I must didn't like her. So it was just a bias that, that's how I've made peace with it. But it was anyway. But I remember I don't hold a lot of I've been dragged online too. So she was the first person who dragged me in person, but I have been dragged online because I, again, don't show up with that FE function. So FE is more about the collective. It's more about harmony. And TE is more about analysis, being analytical, being logical. And so, although I'm a huge advocate for the Black community, when I'm in Black space, I show up analytically. So I don't give the feels as though I'm interested in the Black community. I don't convey that. My affect doesn't demonstrate that. And so if you're looking for a certain affect and I don't give it to you, then you wouldn't draw a conclusion that I'm not here for that, And I think, in all fairness, I think because I have some moderate views about power, right? And I am not interested in rendering Black community as powerless. So I'm always looking at policies how will policies impact us? Will that policy enable us? Or will that policy give us the room to be competitive, to be truly competitive, right? And so this is where my 2 points kind of intermingle, because after getting a dissertation, after using my dissertation to really study the intersections of race, class, instruction, and power, to look at how power shows up in race, class, and instruction, I no longer believe in a purely free market. I don't believe in a free market at all. However, I also can't get with a purely socialist market either. So this is where I'm confused, It's just still confusing for me because I often feel like I'm in an island, but I will never be able to align myself with Black conservatives, particularly the ones that showed up in that YouTube video that I'm responding to, because I thought that there was very little regard for people who don't think the way they do. And I think some of that could just be a trauma response. If Black liberals, Black progressives have eaten them alive, then yeah, they're not going to show up open and curious and affirming. I get that. But I don't want to be that. Even though this Black progressive, I think the girl was more socialist, but whatever, this Black progressive young woman, she dragged me. I still don't want to be the person. I don't want to act defensively. I just don't. But anyways, I just wanted to say that I know what it's like. I wrote an essay, and I won't be able to share it on this account, but I wrote an essay of what it's like when people situate you because of your body. So because I'm Black, you're going to make an assumption that I hold these values to be mine, right? So the majority, and I don't think enough research is done to really demonstrate what are the values of the Black community, right? But for some reason, there seems to be these prevailing values that are assumed when I show up. It's assumed by Black people, it's assumed by white people, and then I have to go through the work to be like, no, and I get hit. Sometimes I hate going to watch a Black movie because with Black, like a movie that's centered in Blackness, because I'm like, oh crap, if I don't think the way the majority of the Black people, then what are you going to do? You're going to revoke my Black card. And it's a running joke in the Black community. Oh, we're going to revoke your Black card. But I find it hurtful because oftentimes I'm straddling the fence like, no, I don't want my Black card taken because I don't want to I want to identify as Black, right? But it's like in order to have that Black card, you must show up a particular way. And so this idea of belonging when you're a political minority within the Black space is a real issue, and it is painful. So my heart would go out to those Black conservatives in that call, but I would challenge them to say, Be better, right? Don't do to others what they've done to you. I know that might be asking a lot, but that's what I would request, because I just didn't like like I said, the affect of why they were showing up. And I guess the last thing I would just want to say is around this idea of the free market. This is what I've just statistically, somebody said this in the discussion, like, oh, you can get ahead, like you can have your own business and your business can be successful. And then somebody made a comment, it's temporary. And somebody said, no, it's not. But statistically, when you look at the pattern across time, you have to ask, how does the free market serve the Black collective? Now, this is where I get in trouble, because I want to be treated as an individual, but I'm not an extreme individualist. Yeah, I want you to see me as an individual. Particularly, I want you to know that I'm an INTJ. I don't have the FE cognitive function. I have TE cognitive function. So that's the one thing that I think I want people to know. I am an INTJ Black woman. I come from a lower socioeconomic background. I come from intergenerational trauma. I am trained and educated, right? These are the things about me that give me nuance and flavor. So when I step in a room, don't just type me as Black. Yes, I am Black, and I'm Black, and that's something that I've been really working hard to do over the past 5 years. Don't just say, oh, they're Black. Say Black and, right? I just got a phone call, so my train of thought is interrupted again. So I got to try to jump back into what I was saying. Let me put you guys on hold 1 second. I don't know where I was at, but where I was trying to go is that when you look at the stats of the Black experience economically, when you look at the socioeconomics, when you look at life and liberty as it relates to freedom in prison, being able to access bank loans, when you break the issues down and look at the data doesn't show movement. And there always are going to be exceptions. And that's the other thing that we have to remember. We think that there were any black people who were well off historically in the past. They were. We have it's almost proportionately the same. And so this is where I would challenge Black conservatives that, yeah, individually in the moment right now, you're doing good. But when somebody was talking about intersectionality, I can't remember some other words that they used, the Black conservatives like, oh, you're talking as an academic, and completely dismissed his education. He completely dismissed this man just because he was using vocabulary that they counted off as academics. I was like, as an academic, I was like, ooh, that doesn't feel like respecting somebody individually. That, so it felt like there was some contradictions that I was seeing a lot from the Black conservatives. But anyway, but when you look at the data across time, it really should lend itself to a different conversation. And yes, if you're doing fine and all you want to care about you as an individual, that's fine. But that's not how the social world works. We are social beings in a social contract with each other. Right? It's not. So I guess the question is, to what degree will we be individuals, and to what degree will we be collectives? And I think this is a great way for me to end, because I've run out of time. I'm a moderate. So, I think I'm an individual with a high interest in protecting the collective as much as I possibly can as an individual. I don't want you taking my individual freedoms away. I don't want you to take my individual identity away. But in being an individual, I'm not saying I got mine, you get yours. Not at all. And so it was just a really interesting discussion, and I'm pretty sure I'll talk about it more in a long form podcast. But I didn't do my disclaimers, y'all, but anyway, you kind of heard it. So I do hope that those of you who have found your way to me for the first time, I hope that you follow me on Twitter, X, You're NIDOM1, Facebook and YouTube, You're NIDOM, or the podcast, You're NIDOM. I would love to have you, even though the podcast is all about self-actualization and growing using personality theory. I hope you'll find me. You guys, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you. Until I come back, be well. Bye.